once again, Strat fans. Colonel Strat, the strategy extraordinaire here, and welcome to So You Want to Play the Empire. So, um, as some of you have probably seen my Empire Let's Play going on currently, I thought it was about time that I did a deep race guide into the Empire on Total War Warhammer 3. In this guide here, we're going to be kind of dissecting the Empire, how their units work, how their campaign works, and how you should maximize your effectiveness playing as the Empire. Even though they're considered one of the main factions, because they were one of the main factions of Warhammer 1, and are very basic in their presentation, they have a lot of flavor that really makes them exciting to play. Now, an interesting thing about the Empire and all of the Warhammer factions is they have a lot of interesting lore and world building that goes behind them as well. This whole universe, I first learned of when I started playing the game back in Warhammer 1, but I knew nothing about the lore of Warhammer Fantasy. I knew a little bit about 40k, but if y'all are interested, Strat fans, and learning more about the lore and the story behind Warhammer, because it is deep. My favorite channel to watch is called Major Kill. Now, Lord Major Kill is he's an Australian YouTuber that kind of throws his own Aussie embellishments in describing the lore, but I find it as a very digestible way to digest the lore and understand it while not getting too technical and drawn out. And when I try to watch other lore YouTubers about it, I just forget half the information. But he makes it digestible and funny at the same time. So he made a really good video on the Empire, and I'll link it in the description. And I'll continue to shout him out for some of these videos, because his lore videos are just that good on them. I mean, it's just my preference, and I understand his way of detailing things, and it makes it digestible for me. And if y'all are interested in learning more about the deep lore about the Empire and all that, give him a check, because I guarantee you'll find it interesting. And the Empire is all about destiny and holding the world together, so it's a very interesting lore. So, you want to play Empire, huh, kid? You want to swing your big Warhammer, knock out some beastmen, or go and defile the undead? Well, well, dear Strat fans, we have. I'm glad to welcome you to this guide on how to play the Empire. All right. So to start things off, let's take a look at how their campaign plays. The Empire starts in a pretty centralized location, especially if you pick one of the main lords, Karl Franz here, who is the Emperor. Kind of just set in the bottom part of the map. He has to deal with the secession. Almost all the Imperial lords, well, at least the first two, since Volkmar got his own faction, he has unique mechanics now. But Emperor Karl Franz and Balthazar Gelt both have their own issues to deal with. I think Balthazar has to deal with orcs, and Karl has to deal with these rebels. So every faction in Total War Warhammer 3 will start with a faction to fight. That's nothing new. The Empire, once they secure this, their campaign actively is going to be trying to convince electors to join them, to join their seat as Emperor. Now, if you look into the elector count screen here, we have the all these different guys here. They hold a province, and once we get their province, then we'll get a bunch of bonuses. Bonuses to the faction, like movement range for Hochland, or Oh well, I think Midland just gives bonuses to themselves. But yeah, like, or the Wasteland gets income from ports.
Empire's blessings, yes.
Reichland, we start with some reduction for Empire state
The
troops. The Wasteland, some missile strength for artillery units, but just for the Lord's army.
Yes.
They do give some bonuses to the Lord's army. A bonus. Some of them give bonuses for all provinces or all armies. They all reduce upkeep for state troop units, which is really good once you have all of them collected. They give you a special item, and they give you they unlock a special unit, a state troop, that is it's taking one of these regular units and just giving them a special trait, as well as making them tier 3, buffing them up quite a bit. So they have better stats than regular units, and they have a special trait that helps them. Caribou Greatswords, they have 2 special traits. Some of them have 1 or 2, but I believe, like, just the Swords of Ulrich have 1 trait, just Frenzy, but Frenzy is pretty good for swordsmen. So that's the basis of the fealty, the elector count system. They also have electoral machinations, which is similar to the High Elves influence system, but a little bit easier to get, because prestige is gained through battles or events, or just how many settlements you actually own. You get them passively through just through playing the campaign, and you can improve the relations that will affect how much fealty they can get every turn. Now, the biggest part of the campaign is keeping an eye on this bar up here, Imperial Authority. Now, you want to be absolute, because then you get a fealty chance, growth, and income. Your growth and income is okay, but the fealty chance is what you want, because then that means every turn, one of these electors, or all these electors, have a chance to flip their fealty up. And you don't want it to get to 0, because if it's 0, they'll rebel and attack you. They'll instantly become enemies to you, and that's not what you want in your campaign. You could probably deal with it if you get, the more powerful Empire units like great swords, and the late game you probably could deal with it, because the Empire can field a lot of armies fast, which makes them a powerful faction if you know how to manage their economy. But if you don't, their units are kind of lackluster, and if you don't have enough armies to support, they can be overwhelmed pretty fast. For buildings, pretty basic. They have a building, like they can build buildings, build ports. Main building, they have access to resources like normal order factions, and they have 3 tiers, 3 different buildings for all their units, for most of their units. Like the barracks, like you would expect, trains their infantry. Stables trades their cavalry, and the gunsmith, the forges, trains all of their gunpowder units. The Empire has a very good artillery force. Hellstorm rocket batteries and Hell's Blaster volley guns are very, very good. They do have specialty units, like from the Shrine of Sigmar, the Flagellants. Flagellants are okay for a tier 2 unit, but they have almost no armor. But they're unbreakable, so they'll fight to the last man. Warrior priests are really good for their heroes. I'll go deep dive in the units later on. So that's basically how their buildings work. Their tech, again, pretty basic. They just have infantry, cavalry, war machines, missiles, diplomatic, the elector count ones. This one helps later on, but you need to get Altdorf almost all the way up. I think it's tier 4 at least before you can actually do it. I usually go for state troop armor because it helps buff up your units to make them a little bit better. For diplomacy wise, the Empire is an order faction, so all the Imperials will will have some aversion to them, some tolerance to them.
Who calls?
Because of course they're the same race. But the Empire will naturally have aversion to Chaos factions like Beastmen, who we start at war with, the Warherder One Eye, and Vampire factions will have historical and aversion towards the Empire and all Empire factions, just because
All right.
they have a history, even though they're technically a neutral faction. Bretonia will be a good ally. The Dwarves will be a great ally. You start with a non-aggression pact with Kara Zekarak. That's basically how you start your campaign, is to consolidate Reichland, especially the fort up here, because you got a Vampire Lord here, Kemmler, and sometimes the Bretonian Lords or even Grom right here will get a little bit too feisty and will try to come down and sack the Empire. So that's basically how the campaign goes. Make sure that you deal with the electors. You try to assimilate them. Keep watch on your authority, and pretty much just spam up these units and get as many armies as possible, because that's how you win. The Empire, they have powerful late game units, but they should always be supported by more armies. All right, and with that, let's take a look at some unit compositions. For early, mid, and late game. All right, and here we are at a pretty basic, I would say, beginning army. So all of these are units you can recruit in Tier 1, and even though your campaign won't be fully, like you won't have an army that's like fully compromised like this, because this isn't a simulated battle, just to show you guys what units you should look to recruit in the beginning. So crossbowmen probably are one of the most reliable beginning game units for the Empire. They have a decent missile strength, a good range, and good ammunition count, and they're okay in melee combat. They're a lot better than regular archers, even though the archers are cheaper. It really depends on how your economy's looking, but I usually go for these guys because they could fire faster and they have more base missile damage. And when you're playing the Empire, especially as Karl Franz's faction, you're not going to face a lot of heavily armored foes, but you are going to face a lot of foes. So you need to have that extra missile damage to be able to like chew through them. So to complement that, a main line of swordsmen, the Empire's basic unit. One of the cheapest, very reliable, has a silver shield, a decent leadership stat, decent stats, but nothing too fancy. They're basically just normal sword and board, hold the line type units. I like to have some spearmen with shields, even though they take a little while to recruit. Them or regular spearmen would work, just to hold the lines. You won't have any access to your artillery or very good cavalry until the mid game, because they're all tier 2 units. Though you could spam rush them to get the gunsmith up and get some mortars or something. So, and then to complement this, I have an Empire Captain. Empire Captains, you get a tier 3. You might start with one as well. They just, basic buffing hero, really armored, has encourage, and hold the line. And then a Battle Wizard, which you'll get one on turn 2. So usually it gives you a Bright Wizard, with basic spells to buff your troops, and a Fireball spell. You don't want to ignore the wizards, because they do help you quite a bit. And then for my cavalry force, Pistoliers. Again, Pistoliers, I don't really like them, but they're better than nothing, and they have a very decent missile strength, even though their other stats are laughable. they are kind of a skirmishing cav, so they're good. They're good to soften the enemy up. So that's basically what a tier 1 army would look like. With all of these different unit types. It works well against the type of foes that the Empire faces, like Beastmen here. So you see, facing Kazrak the One-Eye here does pretty good, but the Pistoliers aren't doing the best. I think we'll be able to win this one, just due to, you know, our missiles, and due to having our Pyromancer here. But normally you won't have this perfect of a composition in campaign, because you'll start with some better units, and you'll start with some, you'll start with some higher tier units thrown in here to help it really work. And even though you do have that, it is going to they are going to clobber you a little bit.
The Empire endures! Sigma! Missiles will fly! Ready for war! Crossbowmen! We obey! By Sigma's will! Find your targets!
Yeah, always going to want to deal with the front.
To me, men! Sigma
Go in there. Go in there.
By Ulrich's wrath! Pistoliers! Taking position!
Let's get you guys back here. Deal with those guys.
Withdraw! Yes, General!
Oh, there goes one crossbow, because they got around to the sides. Again, don't really have any good cav to help deal with that. But we do have a decent front line that's a lot better than the beginning Beastmen front lines. Right, stop it then. You're so afraid of. Jeez, man. All right, so we're going to win this battle. Again, our army is a lot better beginning than the Beastmen army. Again, they're kind of, similar, but they're not the Ungors are not the best. Come on, you piece of... Come on.
Yes, General! Crossbowmen! Spearmen! Ready for war! I'll burn them!
Now we'll do this augment that really helps out our troops. And this one that'll help out our missiles. And then chuck a fireball at their missiles. So you really want to be proactive with the magic. It helps twist the balance in your favor. Going to want to focus on getting Kazrak down as well. So send this captain over there to get him down.
Our steeds are restless. By Gal Maraz. Go! Shoot them! We are Sigma's heirs. Take the ground. Sigma, preserve us!
Alright, now we can send these guys in on the flank and deal some damage to them.
Go! Weapons at the ready! Get them! To battle!
Oh boy, that's not good. They're sniping Carl,
The Empire endures!
but doesn't matter because we got them down with the army loss. All right, and that's basically what a tier 1 army would do against an enemy tier 1 army. Now let's look at a tier 2. All right, now returning to tier 2, we've made a lot of upgrades. Now, the first thing you should do when you get to tier 2 is replace your swordsmen with great swords. Great swords are infinitely better, and they could actually serve as a tier 3 unit. They have very much better armor, a decent melee stat, and they've improved their weapon strength to have bonus versus infantry and more armor piercing. So they can hold and dish out damage better. So you should always try to upgrade your swordsmen to these guys, even though they trade in their shields for it. So against like missile heavy factions, they're going to take a lot more fire. But the other units you should also get will complement this better. You should also trade out your archers for handgunners, your crossbowmen for handgunners. Infinitely better unit, even though their melee stats are not as good as the crossbowmen ones are. And they can only fire in a straight line, not an arc. Their damage is leagues better because of their armor piercing damage. So they're always good, again, especially when you start facing foes that the Empire faces that have heavy armor. These guys negate that armor. You also will have finally unlocked your access to the Imperial artillery, which you should get your hands on some mortars, and maybe even some great cannons. Cannons, again, are straight firing, so you need a hill like this. This is Blackfire Pass, so you have a lot of hills where you start. So you're going to be able to set them up on the hills and do damage through the long range. You'll also be able to get some actual shock cav, some Empire Knights, to help you heavily armored, shielded knights that will be able to have a decent charge bonus and be able to actually do some damage in the flanks. Carl will have gotten up on his horse by now, so will your other two heroes, as well as your Bright Wizard getting his bombard ability and his vortex, and as well as Carl getting his more damaging abilities and his defense buff, as well as the Empire Captain getting his damaging ability. All right, and with that, we're facing a similar army. Still Kazrak, but he's got a few Gores now from his tier 2 roster. See, the balance of power has very, very much favored us now. All right, so let's start the simulated battle. All right, so first we're going to want to target Kazrak with these guns, and then wait for him to get in with his fast cav and Gores. And then we fire with our gunpowder units, doing quite a bit of damage. And then once they get close enough, we have our great swords do the main fighting.
Our steeds are restless.
And we'll also do a flame storm. Because the bright storm really helps. To get our handgunners out of there. That's the thing is, you know, even though they have better stuff, they still have that. They still have their missiles, which are going to be a problem. And you're going to want to micromanage a little bit, because you need to you're gonna have to have your artillery focus on their missiles, because if not, they're gonna snipe your heroes. That's just how it works.
My subjects call. Prepare for combat. See to it.
And then we go after their lord with our lord killers.
We are Sigma's heirs. Quick march.
All right. But again, we're doing massive damage to them, and our greatswords are holding very well.
Weapons at the ready. At speed.
We might even be able to catch their archers out in the open with our handgunners on the side. Because again, if you shoot into the side of the enemy, you'll also do a lot of damage. Handgunners can't do damage to other horses. Also, that's another problem, is the enemy will try to push up the melee line so that they can do damage on your back line, which is problematic. But that too, that is also problematic.
Awaiting command.
Again, like the hounds, like these handgunners and the backline are very vulnerable to melee units, and they can turn the tide if the enemy can get a hold of them. But our melee troops are insanely better, so you can always just turn one great swords around and do damage to them. But the main part of the army is just routing. Okay, that's good. But that's why I usually have my my horses go around the side and do damage to them. All right.
Shoot them! Handgunners! Sigma, show us! No lingering!
All right. If you get your guys knocked off of the pedestals, you just do that. I'm gonna have these guys go after the enemy missiles.
No lingering! Prepare for combat!
Go after those missiles.
Ready for war!
We'll do a bombard to on the missiles to do some extra damage. All right. Now that barrage will do a lot.
Ready for war! My rule is absolute! That's an order! Ready! Prepare for combat! By Ulrich's wrath!
Alright, so the main army is routing. Again, pretty easy victory, but the Empire's weaknesses are that they have to make sure their backline is protected. So investing in a little bit more great swords to protect more of the backline and form more of a line against an enemy cav is almost imperative to do. Alright, so let's take a look at Tier 3. And finally, here's our Tier 3 army. Now you might have noticed I have a few Empire State troops and a regiment of renown, as well as I've gotten some better mounts. So in the later of the game, you should get Gal Moraz, as well as get his mount Deathclaw for Carl, as well as getting the Pegasus, as well as getting finally completing his tree and maybe getting some nice items. I've also switched out my my captain for a warrior priest. Really good with his battle buffs, his damage resist, his melee attack. He's got his soul fire, which is really good, and he's just all around a really good support specialist. I've also gotten Gunderman Sunfires for the handgunners, which gives them stock, as well as getting the Silver Bullets, which are a regiment of renown, which gives them stock as well. I think the Gunderman Sunfires give them high storage, and Vanguard deployment, yeah. As well as getting the Carroburg Greatswords, which are really good as a greatsword unit. I've also traded out my Knights for Demigryph Knights, which are insanely better. And I put them in the back with my new artillery pieces. My Hellstorm Rocket Battery, which is one of the best units that the Empire could field with how much insane damage it does. As well as the Hellblaster Volley Guns, which are very good as well. Not as high range as the Hellblaster or the Hellstorm Rocket Battery, but they are really good. And then I've topped it off with a steam tank. In fact, the electric count version, which is unbreakable, and it's got the emergency event, which is kind of like an explosion type of thing. It blows them up. Alright, and we're facing Warriors of Chaos with Archaon this time.
The ground quakes. See to it. Yes, General.
So those high damaging missiles will do really well.
Shalia protects us. Standing by. At speed. Yes, sir. For the Emperor.
We'll do the Burning Head, which will help us get a little bit of extra damage on them. Then we'll have our Demigryph Knights
Quick march.
go up against these guys.
Them. Demigryph Knights. State troops ready. The Empire endures. Sigma. Great swords. We obey. Yes.
Alright, and we'll get a fireball on that Hell Cannon back there.
Subjects
And we're going to
call.
send
Prepare
Karl
for
Franz
combat.
in,
By all
and as
means,
well
strike.
have the Soulfire cast down on here, as well as activating all his buffs, which does damage against them. So again, the Hellstorms are not going to do as much damage in the long term, because this battle right here is not a lot of open ground, but they do a lot of damage if they're able to actually get to them. So again, the Demigryphs, as well as the explosion here. The steam tank is really good. We're going to call Gal Moraz and all of these things so we can deal with Archaon, and then get the magical attacks on our troops here so we can go through the demons' physical resist.
Great swords.
So that helps against the Chaos Demons.
Hellblaster Polygon. Crank that machine.
Alright, so let's try to get our handgunners on the sides,
Take the ground.
because they'll help
Quick march.
getting
By all
they'll help in
means,
getting those enemies down.
quickly. For Heldenhammer.
But we got to get Karl out of there. He's not doing so hot. Gotta get him out of there. He's getting surrounded. All right,
Ready for war.
they're just kind of surrounding our troops, but it does help that we have mobility.
Quick march.
We keep a Karl alive, his army will falter,
Hellblaster.
even though we are kind of heavily losing that front there. Our gunpowder units are going to be able to do a lot better, and we're cleaning them up over here. So this is going to be a victory. It's just he's going to take as much with him as he can.
The Empire endures. Hellblaster Polygon.
That's just how Archaon is. Archaon's very powerful even when he's lower tier. All right, no, those Nurglings are done. Let's go and take care of him. All right, you see, easy victory, and we've routed them. We've taken quite a bit of casualties, but we're doing pretty good. Oh, I thought he had his mount. Guess he didn't. Oh well. And that's it. That's all she wrote. Alright, so that's an N tier army, and even though Chaos will have better stuff, they probably will have mostly Chaos Warrior type stuff or Chosen. But if you are able to position your gunpowder infantry and do a lot of damage to them, as well as see how much these rocket batteries are doing. They are, if it's an open field, Chaos is doomed. Now, Blackfire Pass, this is one of the battles that it's a quest battle, so you're not going to really fight many times here, and it's going to be orcs you're fighting, not chaos. But I figured it was the best battlefield as any to test this out. All right. So in conclusion, that's how you play the Empire. Focusing on getting powerful melee infantry, buff them up with special lords that buff up their stats. Heavy artillery with gunpowder infantry, and that's how you dominate as them, as well as making sure that all your electors play nice and eventually confederate with you, hold off against chaos, and save the world. Yes, I know, it's the generic fantasy trope of saving the world, the good guys, but that's what the Empire is all about: triumphing against overwhelming odds, and uniting themselves again and putting aside their petty differences to save the world. So with that, are you ready to start your Empire campaign? Ready to take Carl or Balthazar, my little golden daddy here, or Marcus,
Gather.
or even Volkmar off to conquer? Are you ready to go and banish the evil, protect the Empire, and keep everything held together? Be the glue that keeps the Empire from falling apart and from the world from being torn asunder? All right, dear viewer. I know you have skulls to to bash in, so I'll leave you to it. And with that, Strat fans, that is my Empire guide. Keep it strategic, Strat fans. Colonel out.